Scrap metal, air, water, promises, people. I live at the bottom of a hive city where the sum of a man's life might just be the nutrients his corpse can provide. They call me a recycling plant worker, as if it's a proud title, as if I'm saving the damned world by sorting yesterday's garbage and shoveling human remains into grinders. In a sense, I am. On this resource-scarce rock we call home, turning refuse into something useful isn't just a job, it's survival. It's holy, even. The priests say our toil pleases the god emperor himself. Lucky me. My day starts long before any sun would rise, if sunlight ever reached this deep. Not that it matters. Day and night are abstract concepts in the depths. Shift cycles and lumen curfews are the only clocks we live by. Down here, we haven't seen the sky in generations. Instead, we wake to the flicker of failing lumen strips and the jarring clang of the morning shift bell. It's a sound somewhere between a rusty klaxon and a dying grox. Beautiful. I peel myself from the cot that I call a bed. The air tastes of iron filings and old sweat. Recycled air, pumped down from the heights of the hive spire above, filtered through miles of machines until all the flavor of life is gone. By the time it reaches me, it's stale and tinged with ozone and oil. I cough as usual. There's a new rattle in my lungs. Must be the fine dust from yesterday's shift. I wonder if today's the day it settles in for good, turns into something nasty. Probably. But I push that thought aside. No time for self-pity. Got a quota to meet. In the dim light, I fumble for my boots. They're more patches than leather. A steel cap on the left one is loose, clacking as I walk. Each step is a reminder of the rockcrete slab that fell on my foot 2 years ago. I should be grateful I still have that foot. Many of my colleagues weren't so lucky when the scaffolding gave way. The foreman said the machine spirit was testing our faith. Personally, I think the welds were just rusted through, but you don't say things like that aloud, not if you want to keep your tongue. My hab unit is a 3 by 3 meter cubicle, which I share with 2 other workers, rotating who gets to sleep when. I get the morning slot, since my shift starts at what passes for dawn down here. Across from me, old Marika is still snoring on the upper bunk. Her shift must have ended just a couple hours ago. She lost an arm last month to a conveyor cog. Now she's learning to manage one-handed sweeping duty. We were all shocked she survived at all. Often, anyone caught in the machinery ends up too shredded to save, or the overseers simply deem them not worth the expense of treatment. But Marika is tough as nails. She tied off her own tourniquet until a med servitor arrived. Now the wounds cauterized and puckered, hidden under a ragged sleeve. She'd be out on the streets if the foreman didn't need someone to clean the catwalks. In this hive, being maimed is a privilege. It means you lived. I splash a handful of water on my face from a tin bowl. The water's lukewarm and slightly brown. Recycled, of course. Every drop of wastewater in the hive eventually finds its way to a purifier, and then back to us. It's never truly clean. There's a saying among us drudges, don't think about what you're drinking, and it'll go down easier. I try not to. Emperor knows what's in it. Probably better I don't know. There's no mirror here, but I can imagine my reflection well enough. Sunken eyes with dark rings, skin with a grayish pallor from lack of sunlight and constant exposure to dust and chemical fumes. A few scars here and there, one on my chin from when a metal shard flew off the shredder, a burn on my neck from a drip of molten slag that popped from the vat. My hair, what's left of it, is cropped short for safety. You don't want loose strands when working near spinning gears. I learned that from seeing a man's scalp peeled clean off his head by a rotary shaft. Charming workplace, really. A little slice of heaven in hell. Danger is as much a part of the job as the grime under our nails. Each shift a fresh, deadly gamble with our lives. I pull on my work coat, a heavy, once orange garment now stained black with grease and soot. It's thick enough to ward off minor splashes of acid or sparks, not that it always helps. The smell of it is comforting in a strange way, a familiar mix of sweat, machine oil, and the omnipresent chemical reek that clings to everything down here. A perfume of duty and drudgery. By the door, I bow my head briefly to the small faded print of the god Emperor I've tacked to the wall. It's tradition, or superstition, to say a little prayer before a shift. I mutter under my breath as quietly as possible so I don't wake Marika. Holy Emperor, watch over your humble servant today. Guide my hands to work safely and diligently. Protect me from the Hive's many dangers, that I might serve you again tomorrow. They taught us that prayer in the Ministerum's Scholam when I was a kid. The litany of the dutiful worker. Some days I put a little faith behind it. Some days it's just words. Today, well, I'm feeling a bit less than devout, truth be told, but I still say it. Can't hurt, and if I skip it and something goes wrong, the first thing I'll think is that I brought it on myself for not praying. That's life in the Imperium for you. Half devotion, half superstition, with a dash of fear. My mother used to tell me stories about the open sky when I was little, second-hand tales passed down from her own grandfather who'd fought in the Emperor's wars on an agri world under a blue sun. I clung to those bedtime stories of clouds and stars, even though I suspect she never saw them herself. Our family has been down in these depths for as long as records go, generations of sump sloggers and furnace feeders. Perhaps one ancestor came from the surface long ago, but if so, that hope of seeing open sky died long before I was born. We belong to the darkness now. Prayer done, I secure the latch on my respirator mask to my belt. I don't put it on yet. I'll need it at the plant, not in the hab block corridors. It's standard issue, a battered rebreather unit that covers the nose and mouth. The filter cartridges are nearing the end of their life, I think. Supposed to be changed monthly, but supply is short this quarter, as always. Breathing through it is like sucking air through a damp rag, but it's better than inhaling the cocktail of toxic fumes at the work site directly. The older workers joke that if the work doesn't kill you, the air will. I believe them. I step out into the corridor and nearly trip over a heap of rags sleeping by the threshold. The heap grumbles and resolves into old Bren, one of the Hab's many drifters without a permanent bunk. He must have curled up outside our door for a bit of warm air leaking from inside. "Mind your step, lad," he croaks at me, one bleary eye open. He's missing his left leg below the knee, lost it to some infection years back, they say. Now he just crawls or begs rides on the cargo lifts. Technically, those too injured or sick to work are supposed to be taken to the redemption clinics for Emperor's Mercy, a polite term for euthanasia and recycling. But Bren slipped through the cracks, probably because he's cunning and lucky, or because someone in our block pities him enough to sneak him food. Not everyone down here is completely heartless. I mutter an apology and press a protein bar into his hand, my breakfast rations. It's a bland rectangle of corpse starch and algae, but it's the only extra I have until midday. Bren needs it more than me. I'll get another at the plant when the shift bell tolls noon. He looks at the bar and cackles a little, nodding in thanks. "Emperor shine on ye, boy," he wheezes, tucking it away. I don't linger. Displays of charity can draw unwanted attention. If the overseers saw, they'd dock my own rations for wasting them on someone who doesn't contribute. Emperor forbid we show a shred of kindness. The corridor is narrow, lit by a swaying lumen strip overhead that bathes everything in sickly yellow. Other workers are shuffling out of their habs, joining the slow-moving river of human bodies, heading for the elevators. It's shift change. A few hundred of us packed in like corpse hauler beetles in a line. I fall in step, wordless, just another orange coat among many. A low murmur of coughs, throat clearing, and tired greetings fills the air. Many of us have the same hacking cough. You can almost play a tune from the chorus of it, echoing off the metal walls. We pass a shrine alcove where a small automated servitor drone is reciting morning prayers over a crackling Vox speaker. The voice is tinny and distorted, something about, "Honest work is a prayer unto the Emperor." A couple of workers ahead of me briefly bow or cross themselves at that, but most shuffle on. We're all honest workers here, or at least too exhausted to be anything else. While we shuffle, a distant boom echoes through the walls, probably a stub gun or pipe bomb from far below. There's no telling if it's a gang clash in the depths or a summary execution by enforcers. Either happens often enough. No one in our group even flinches at the sound. Down here, violence is the ambient noise of life. At the elevator lobby, we shuffle into the giant freight lift that will carry us downward to the manufactorum levels. It's an old platform with rusted metal railings, big enough for maybe 50 people, but we cram nearly twice that because no one wants to wait for the next run. I end up pressed against the railing at the edge. The lift operator, a scrawny man with cybernetic eyes, yells at those on the edge to hold on. He then slams a lever and the lift shudders to life, descending with a stomach-lurching jolt. As we descend, the air grows heavier with industrial smells, the tang of promethium, hot metal, the sour rot of decay. Each level we pass is marked by a stenciled number on the shaft wall, illuminated briefly by the lift's lone working lumen. Level 50, 51, 52. The higher numbers are hab levels, where families live and petty merchants sell synth foods and recycled goods. As the numbers climb towards the 60s and beyond, we enter the manufactorum decks and recycling plants. I catch a glimpse through the grated side of the lift as we pass one level, where a huge cavernous space yawns open, lit by furnace flame. That's the main smeltery of Section 12. I see sparks flying in showers as crucibles are poured, even at this early hour. The sound of metal on metal echoes up the shaft, a distant hammering like the heartbeat of the hive itself. My stop is level 65. Reclamation Sector 65C, where I've worked the past 7 years. Before that, I did a stint in textile recycling, sorting rags and shredded fabric for reweaving, mind-numbingly tedious. But heavy labor pays marginally better rations, and they needed bodies to haul scrap in 65C, so here I am. As I shuffle along with the crowd toward the sector gates, I think of my father. He walked this same path every day of his life, to a manufactorum only a few levels above the one I serve in. He died when I was 13, caught in an auger press accident. One moment pushing metal into the machine, the next he was part of the slurry that came out. I still remember the day the overseers came to our hab with a payout of 2 throne gelt and a ration card extension, calling it compensation for his sacrifice. My mother cried for weeks. I don't think she ever truly stopped. After that, it was just her and me, until I was old enough to take a shift. Sometimes I wonder if I'm walking in his exact footsteps, doomed to end the same way. But I try not to dwell on it. In the hive, such thoughts will paralyze you, and you have to keep moving or get trampled. A servitor at the checkpoint scans my ident tag and retina with a pale red beam. The door groans open. Heat, noise, and fumes immediately pour out, an assault on the senses. Even through my mask, I smell burning lubricant and decay. Another glorious day in the grinders, I mutter to myself, stepping inside. My voice is lost in the din. Inside the plant, it's organized chaos. The air here is a murky haze of smoke and dust, lit by the angry red glow of furnace mouths. High above, huge crane arms groan along ceiling tracks, moving scrap from one end to the other, with a screech that cuts through the constant background roar. Every surface, from the floor that grates under my boots to the control panels we touch, is coated in a film of black grime. The scent is a punch to the senses: hot metal, burnt oil, rancid decay from organic waste, and the omnipresent ammonia tang of cleaning chemicals that never quite scrub anything clean. It's like standing inside the belly of some great beast, a cacophony of clanging, hissing, and grinding that you'd swear was the creature's own snarling. We work within this iron cacophony, shouting when we need to communicate, but mostly moving in practiced silence. Conveyor belts laden with refuse snake through the facility like hungry metal tongues. Bins and vats and furnaces line the walls. The ceiling is lost in shadow beyond the glow of industrial lights and the occasional open flame of a cutting torch. Everywhere machines clatter and roar, pulverizers reducing debris to chunks, separators humming as they pull metal from cloth from bone with magnetic fields and gravity shakers. Workers, my colleagues, though we barely know each other's names, move about in their soot-stained gear, tending to the machines, prying out jams, shoveling piles of sorted material into the next stage of processing. Amidst them, lumber servitors, once human machines with blank stares and whirring implants, their flesh pale and often grafted with metal tools. They perform the heavy or dangerous tasks with tireless efficiency. I try not to look at them for too long. It's unsettling to wonder which poor souls ended up recycled in that way, and whether I might recognize a face among them. Over it all, up on an ironwork gantry that oversees the factory floor, stands the shift overseer, arms clasped behind his back. His name is Cronus, a tall, gaunt man with a bionic left eye that glows red. They say he was a ganger who got recruited by the guilders to keep us in line, one form of brutality traded for another. Cronus enjoys his job a bit too much. Rumor is he personally volunteered to execute a half-dozen workers after last year's food riot. I can almost feel his mechanical gaze sweep over us even now, searching for any sign of slacking. A Vox-amplified voice booms from speakers arrayed around the plant, Cronus's morning litany. "Attention work units. By the grace of the God Emperor and the wisdom of Lord Helmore, another cycle begins. Toil and be glad, for your labor nourishes the hive. Waste not, want not, all praise the Emperor's infinite providence." The workers mumble in response, "Praise be," or "Amen," or nothing at all. I say nothing, just roll my eyes behind the respirator. Cronus ends every speech with that same line, "Waste not, want not." I'm convinced he only knows the one proverb. Maybe he thinks it's clever because we literally handle waste. The irony isn't lost on me. I'm not sure it's even irony, just reality. Barely a minute later, Cronus finds his first target, a middle-aged woman on line 2 who paused a second too long to adjust her slipping respirator. Quick as a feral cat, he's down the gantry stairs and behind her. "No slacking!" he roars, and before she can protest, he cracks that humming shock baton across her back. She cries out and stumbles against the conveyor. I see sparks arc over her body as she convulses. My fist tightens around the tool in my hand, knuckles white with anger I can't afford to show. The woman bites back further noise, straightening with remarkable resolve even as her whole frame trembles. She resumes work, tears cutting lines through the grime on her cheeks. Cronus sneers and stalks off, satisfied. This is how it goes, rule by fear and pain. We pretend not to notice, each of us secretly praying not to be the next example. As the announcement ends, the machinery spins fully to life, and the day's real work begins. I head to my station. Line 3, Section B, the metal salvage conveyor. It's basically a long belt that carries heaps of scrap metal through a sorting cogitator, which tries to separate out valuables, but it jams every few minutes on twisted girders or bulk debris. My job is to clear those jams, pick off any pieces the machine can't identify, and occasionally manually pry out chunks to toss into the appropriate chute. It's as glamorous as it sounds. The conveyor is already running, a motley stream of last shift's collection clattering along. I see bent rebar, shredded steel plates, broken machinery parts, rusted pipes, the occasional glint of copper wiring. All of it coated in grime. Among the detritus, here and there, I catch more unsettling things. A child's broken cogitator toy, a tattered boot with a foot still in it, likely from some underhiver who met a nasty end, or fragments of bone. Even though organic matter is supposed to be sorted out upstream, bits and pieces find their way here. Per protocol and superstition, I tap a small medallion of the machine god riveted to the console and mutter, "Omnissiah, grant me access." You never know. Some tech priests say if you don't appease the machine spirit before poking around, it'll take offense and bite back. I press the rune to halt the belt momentarily as I spot a particularly nasty snarl, a length of razor wire tangled up with a hunk of concrete. Of course, it had to be razor wire. My gloves are thick canvas, but they won't stop a barb from biting through if I'm clumsy. With a grunt, I grab a hooked rod from the tool rack and start untangling the mess. As I'm wrestling with it, someone comes up beside me to help. I recognize the shape through the corner of my eye even before he speaks. It's Lothar, my co-worker on this line, and perhaps the closest thing I have to a friend in this Emperor-forsaken place. We've worked side by side on Line 3 for the past 4 years, watching each other's backs in small ways, whether it's holding a jammed panel steady or covering when one of us needs an extra minute to catch our breath. In a world as bleak as ours, that makes a world of difference. "Morning sunshine," Lothar drawls, his voice muffled by his own rebreather. He uses a pair of clamped pliers to grab the wire while I hold the concrete steady. With practiced coordination, we yank the two apart and toss each into their respective chutes. Metal to be melted, rubble to be crushed for aggregate. The belt whirs back to life once the blockage is cleared. "Another day in paradise," I reply wryly. "Thought you weren't coming in. You hear the shift bell late or something?" He chuckles. "Nah, just had a slow start. My bunk's infested with clot flies again. Didn't get much sleep swatting the little bleeders." I nod sympathetically. Clot flies love the smell of human misery, and the underhive is full of it. Their bites are more annoying than dangerous unless they carry some hive pox, which occasionally they do. "You put in a maintenance request to fumigate?" Lothar snorts, reaching out to flick aside a scrap of sharp tin before it passes by. "Yeah, I did. The Hab Servitor said it would forward to appropriate sub-department, which means it'll happen maybe by next Emperor's Day, if at all." We both share a look that needs no words. Nothing ever gets fixed down here unless it threatens production or the higher-ups' comfort. A few stinging insects in workers' quarters, not even worth a line in a log. We fall silent for a while as the work picks up. I yank out a twisted piece of metal that looks like a machine cog the size of my head, handing it off to Lothar, who staggers a bit under the weight before dropping it in the bin. The clanging and rumbling of the conveyor and machines fills the air. Conversation can only be in short bursts when a moment of relative quiet comes, like now as an auto-sorter down the line squeals to a halt, needing resetting. "Did you hear about Section D last night?" Lothar asks, almost casually, but I can tell by his tone it's something serious. I shake my head. No, I was dead to the world after last shift. Something happen? He leans in, keeping his voice low despite the noise around us, old habits in a place where supervisors might be listening. Heard there was a collapse. Part of the ceiling came down near the chemical processing vats. I hiss through my teeth. Emperor's throne. Anyone we know? A couple. Rigo, that bald guy who always worked near the acid bath, you know. And Salem, the younger one with the limp. They were on duty there. I picture them. Rigo with his wheezy laugh and acid burns scarring half his face. Salem, who must have been only 20 Terran years, but looked 40, always rubbing at that bad knee of his. Are they? I ask, dread in my voice. Lothar's silence is answer enough. A knot forms in my stomach. My throat tightens with grief as a memory of Rigo flashes through my mind. Rigo chuckling as he helped me loosen a stuck valve on my first week here, showing me a trick to avoid acid splatter. After we'd fixed it, he slapped my shoulder with that remaining hand of his and said, "Keep your head on straight, kid, and you'll live to die of old age, unlike us fools." It was a grim joke, but it made me laugh then. And Salem, Emperor, he was just a kid. I recall him giving me half his ration once when I missed a meal. Said he wasn't hungry, but I knew better. He just had a kinder heart than most down here. That's 2 more gone. And likely more whose names we don't know, if it was a big collapse. Death is common in the Hive, especially in jobs like ours, but it's never easy hearing a name you recognize. It could have been us. The thought comes unbidden, as it always does. One random misfortune away. Any idea what caused it? I ask quietly, releasing a lever to drop another load of scrap into the smelter intake. Lothar shrugs, eyes fixed on the conveyor. Official word ain't out. But scuttlebutt among the lads is that the support beams were corroded. Been leaking fumes from those chem vats for Emperor, knows how long, eating away the metal. They knew it too. One of Rigo's buddies said they'd reported the weakened beams weeks ago. Let me guess, I mutter bitterly. No one came to fix it. Got it in one. Lothar's lips curl in disgust, visible even behind the transparent panel of his mask. They never do. Easier to replace workers than infrastructure. I grip the edge of the conveyor a moment, fighting a wave of anger and helplessness. It's a familiar feeling, one I usually push down. But today it's rising faster. Maybe it's the way my lungs are burning already. Or the echo of Cronus's sanctimonious voice about toil and be glad. Glad, my ass. Rigo and Salem are probably already in the corpse grinder now, turned into tomorrow's ration bars. Lothar seems to catch my train of thought. They will be if they're found. Could be still buried in the rubble, might not even bother digging them out. He doesn't have to say why, we both know. If the area is too unstable, the guild will just cordon it off, write off the equipment, and leave the bodies entombed. A new section will be opened elsewhere, and life goes on. The hive never stops humming. My hands are shaking on the next piece I pick up. Emperor, I need to get a hold of myself. I force a long exhale into the respirator, feeling the resistance of the filter as if pushing against my own chest. Anyway, Lothar says after a moment, patting my shoulder, watch yourself today. If you see anything dripping where it shouldn't, or hear some odd creaks above, don't wait for a blessed overseer to tell you. Just move. Same to you, I reply. We carry on for a while without much talk, eyes and hands focused on the endless river of scrap. Occasionally, Cronus's amplified voice cuts through the clamor to berate some crew or other. Line 5, you're falling behind on output. Or, clear that jam now. Don't make me come down there. Always charming, that man. At mid-shift, a siren whoops twice, signaling the short meal break. Not that the machines stop, just that others will cover for us for a few minutes. I wipe sweat from my brow, leaving a streak of grime. We step away from the line and find a relatively quieter corner behind a stack of empty crates to have our ration bars. The light here is dim, one flickering loom globe above us, casting jittery shadows. I pull out the ration bar I got at checkpoint, a replacement for the one I gave Bren. It's dense, gray, and tasteless as ever. Compressed nutrients, recycled from Emperor knows what. Well, I do know what, but I try not to think about it. Lothar is chewing on his, grimacing. Throne, I swear they made these ones extra foul today, he says, washing a bite down with a gulp from his canteen. I nibble mine with equal distaste. It's like eating sawdust and glue, with a hint of coppery aftertaste. Could be from the blood protein in the mix. Perhaps they're trying out a new recipe, he barks a laugh. Corpse starch surprise, now with more corpse. I almost choke at that, both at the morbid humor and the kernel of truth in it. Everyone knows the basics. Human bodies don't go to waste in a hive, not when food is scarce. But we seldom joke about it openly. That's how you know you're truly jaded, when you can laugh about eating your dead neighbor. A comfortable, or as comfortable as it can be here, silence stretches for a moment. The sounds of machinery and labor echo around the distant walls. My muscles ache, and we're only halfway done for the day. I try not to think about the second half yet. Lothar finishes his bar and glances around to be sure no overseers are nearby. He lifts his mask briefly to scratch his stubbled cheek. You ever think about getting out of here? I raise an eyebrow. Out of the plant? What, like a transfer? Transfers are rare and usually not improvements. He shakes his head. No, I mean out of the hive. Off-world, maybe. I stare at him as if he'd grown a second head. It's not an entirely new idea. Every hiver wonders if there's a better life somewhere out there among the stars, at least in some half-forgotten daydream. But to hear it from Lothar, who is usually as grounded and cynical as they come. You been drinking wild snake or something? Off-world. You know as well as I do, they don't let our kind off this rock. There's bitterness in his voice. I know, but imagine it anyway. A sky open and real above your head, breathing air that hasn't been through 10,000 lungs first. Sunlight. He trails off, and in the gloom I see his eyes unfocus, as if trying to see that vision. I allow myself a moment to picture it too. The idea of a sky, blue, endless. It's almost a myth. I've seen Picts in books, of course. Even the dim glow of the hive world sun filtered through toxic clouds at the upper levels. I haven't witnessed that personally, but someone from a mid-hive transit crew once described a sunset to me in reverent tones. It sounded like magic, but that world is as unreachable as a dream. Sunlight would probably blind us mole rats, I say, trying to inject some levity. We'd scurry right back into the shadows. Lothar grins slightly. Maybe, but I'd risk it if I had the chance. I frown. This about that off-world labor lottery thing? Occasionally, the administratum runs tithe lotteries, taking a few hundred lucky or unlucky workers to ship off to another colony or the Imperial Guard. You know those are rigged or death sentences anyway. He quickly shakes his head. Not that. Something else. He hesitates, then lowers his voice. I heard from a guy over in the boiler maintenance crew. He said there's a smuggler, one of the cargo loader bosses, who can get people on outbound freighters. For a price. I blink. This is news, and dangerous news at that. You serious? That kind of thing gets you executed if you're caught. Only if you're caught, Lothar whispers. He said this smuggler's done it before, lots of times. People have vanished from the hive. Workers. And not just into the morgue or sump. Off-world, some say to a paradise planet or to the frontier where you can breathe free. I can't help but snort, skeptical. Paradise planet. Right. More likely indentured to some mining colony or press-ganged into the guard. Even that would be out of here, he insists, a bit of fire in his eyes. Look, I know it's a long shot, but sometimes I feel like if I stay here one more year, one more month, I'm gonna end up like old Bren, or worse, like those servitors. I'd rather take my chance out there, however slim. I study him. There's a desperation in his tone that I don't usually hear. The collapse last night, losing Rigo and Salem, maybe it's rattled him. It's rattling me, truth be told. We all act tough, joke about the danger, but none of us want to die in this misery. Before I can respond, a harsh buzzer sounds. Break time over. A groan passes through nearby workers as we all stand and stretch sore limbs. I gulp the last of my water and shove the remains of my ration bar into a pocket to finish later. As we head back to Line 3, I put a hand on Lothar's shoulder. Be careful who you talk to about that, I warn quietly. I get it, I do. But if Cronus or the Guilders catch a whisper, they'll string you up for sedition or attempted desertion or some other trumped-up charge. Just keep your head down. He gives a resigned nod. Yeah, of course. Just talking, you know. But the way he avoids my eyes tells me he might already be beyond just talking. The thought sends a chill through me that even the furnace heat can't dispel. The last thing I want is my friend getting himself killed chasing a pipe dream. Not that I can blame him. Back at the conveyor, we don our gear fully again and resume the dance. Feed the machine, clear the jams, toss the scrap, over and over, hours blur. My back aches and my arms feel leaden, but I push through the fatigue by sheer habit. If you stop, if you slow, someone like Cronus will notice, and then you might catch a shock whip or a demerit, which means reduced rations or pay, unthinkable when you're already on the edge. At one point, a siren wails from somewhere down in Section F, accompanied by a brief commotion. I see distant figures running, hear muffled shouts. Everyone on my line pauses, looking around in alarm. Is it a fire? A chemical leak? We strain our ears, but within a minute, the siren cuts out. The incident, whatever it was, seems contained. Cronus's voice crackles on the intercom a moment later. Minor incident in Section F. Not to worry. All units resume work. We are behind schedule. We exchange uneasy glances, but do as we're told. Minor incident. Sure. That usually means at least one person maimed or dead, but not enough to halt production. We'll likely never even hear the details. The afternoon wears on. Sweat soaks my back under the coat. My eyes burn even behind my goggles, from smoke and fatigue. Lothar and I work in near silence aside from necessary words. I find myself thinking about what he said. The thought of leaving, somehow slipping away on a ship. Could I do it? Dare I even dream that? The fear of the unknown wars with the dread of endless known misery. It's moot unless that smuggler rumor is real, and unless one of us had anything of value to pay them. We barely earn enough ration chits to feed ourselves. Hard currency like thrones is rare down here. Maybe Lothar's been saving or has something in mind to trade. Still, it sounds impossible. An hour before our shift is scheduled to end, things go wrong. And not the usual little wrongs. We're used to those. This is a big wrong, and it starts subtly enough. I'm at the far end of the conveyor line, clearing one last jam for the day, some oversized chunk of metal that the claw couldn't grab. It looks like part of an old industrial engine block. Lothar has gone to fetch an auspex device because we've been getting weird feedback signals from the sorting cogitator. so I'm alone in this corner for the moment. The machines around me are thundering at full tilt to meet the end-of-day quota. As I lever the chunk free with a screech of metal, I feel a sensation. It's hard to describe at first, a prickling on the back of my neck. The hairs on my arms stand up under my sleeves. For a second, I think maybe a coolant line nearby just dropped in temperature or something. A cold draft? But it's not that. It's like an instinctive dread, an oppressive sense that makes my mouth go dry. I glance around. The lights above flicker, but that's not unusual. A few other workers are within sight, doing their tasks. Everything looks normal, if you can call any of this normal. I shrug it off, probably just exhausted. Lothar returns, fiddling with the auspex device, a handheld sensor tuned to detect metal densities and such. "Damn thing's acting up," he mutters, smacking it. "Everything's acting up," I reply, still unsettled. "Maybe the machine spirits are cranky today." He gives a half-hearted chuckle, then suddenly the auspex pings with a sharp tone. He blinks, looking at the readout. "That's odd." "What is?" "It's reading a contaminant in the scrap, something organic that shouldn't be here, large too, maybe a missorted chunk of Emperor. I hope it's not a whole Grox carcass or something. Sometimes people toss animal remains or whatever into general waste by accident, and that can gum up the works." We peer at the conveyor. Just then, a cluster of material comes clattering down from the upper feeder onto our line, likely stuff that was held up due to our earlier jam and is now being released. Mixed in with torn plastic and metal shards, I see it. A lumpy burlap-wrapped bundle about the size of a small human. It's leaking a dark fluid. We both know what that is immediately. We're not strangers to corpses turning up in the trash. Maybe someone up Hive tried to dispose of a body discreetly, or some accident victim got swept in with the refuse. Normally, bodies go to the corpse guild, not to general recycling. This is not supposed to happen. "Throne," Lothar curses. "Hit the stop!" I slam the emergency stop rune and the conveyor grinds to a halt with a squeal. The bundle lies about 2 meters away on the belt. Up and down the line, a few others notice and start leaning in to see why we stopped. Cronus's voice hollers from above, his bionic eye surely locking on us. "Line 3, why are you stopping? Who gave you authorization?" I ignore him for the moment and hop onto the edge of the conveyor, moving carefully toward the bundle. My boots crunch over debris. Lothar is right behind me. "We have to check this, if it's a corpse. Procedure says to call the mortuarius crew, and meanwhile keep it away from the rest of the materials." I tug the burlap wrapping, and it sloughs off with a wet peeling sound. Inside is indeed a body, but not a whole one. It's pieces. Emperor save us. Someone threw a butchered human torso down here. It looks like it was hacked apart messily. The head is missing, the limbs crudely severed. The dark fluid leaking out is blood, only partially clotted. Can't have been dead too long. My stomach lurches at the sight, and smell now hitting through even the mask. I've seen death in many forms, but this looks like murder. Lothar recoils, hand over his mask filter. "Who the hell?" Before we can process, there's a clamor from further up the line. A couple of workers who are upstream are shouting and waving. I see one of them pointing at something moving among the scrap near them. I squint. At first, I think it's some machine part shifting, but then I see a figure rising out of the trash pile. For a heartbeat, I think it's another worker who fell in. But it's not. The shape is wrong. The movement's jerky and unnatural. It's a man, or was. He's emaciated, clothes in tatters, skin covered in grime, and he's got a knife, a long, curved blade that catches the light. His eyes are wild, and there's blood smeared around his mouth. Blood and something. Is that flesh? Emperor's mercy, it hits me. This gaunt figure is gnawing on a severed hand. He must have been hiding under the piles, feasting like a rat. A sump scavenger, one of the cannibal dregs from the deepest holes. I've heard horror stories of them as a child, but never imagined I'd see one up close. A cannibal in our plant? The workers near him back away in panic. One brandishes a metal rod defensively. The intruder, chewing, just grins at them with red-stained teeth, then lets out a guttural laugh that echoes off the metal walls. In that moment, time seems to slow. A series of realizations flash through me. The body pieces on our line, this madman. He must be one of the scavies or ghouls from the sump or under Hive depths. Sometimes they sneak into places like this in search of food, or what qualifies as food to their degenerated minds. It's rare they come this high up, though. Security must have been lax, or perhaps someone let him in. But why would... My thoughts cut off as all hell breaks loose. The cannibal lunges at the nearest worker with a snarl. She swings her rod, catching him in the shoulder, but he moves with frenzied strength, hardly slowing. He tackles her onto the moving conveyor. It's still moving in that section because we only stopped my local belt. They tumble amidst the trash. She's screaming. Lothar jumps back onto the ground beside me, shock and confusion in his eyes. Cronus up on the gantry is yelling into his vox for security. I see him start to descend the metal stairs, pulling out a shock baton. I should help the woman. Emperor, I should do something. I start to move, but Lothar grabs my arm. Don't, he warns. He's infected, or worse. He's right to worry. Those who live amid the sump and ash wastes often carry diseases or worse mutations. Yet leaving her to that fate, my hesitation might have cost her. The crazed intruder raises the knife and brings it down. I hear her scream, see a spray of blood on the conveyor. There's a roar of anger from a couple of other workers. They rush the cannibal with tools raised. One slams a wrench into the man's back. The other kicks him off the now limp body of the woman. The cannibal snarls, slashing wildly, catching one of them across the face. The other swings again, cracking the scavvy's skull with the heavy wrench. The intruder crumples, finally still. The man who struck him, I think his name is Janin from line 4, stands panting, holding the bloody wrench. The one who got slashed is on his knees, clutching his face as blood wells between his fingers. The woman on the conveyor. She's not moving at all, a dark pool spreading under her. The entire sequence took maybe half a minute. Silence falls, broken only by the hum and clatter of machinery still running elsewhere. Everyone is stunned. Then Cronus arrives. He pushes through a cluster of workers who have gathered, shock baton crackling in his hand. He looks at the scene with a curled lip of disgust. He barks, "Back to your stations, all of you. Security will handle this." There is a palpable disbelief. A woman lies dead, a co-worker wounded, an intruder in our midst. And he expects us to just resume work? Cronus steps forward and jabs his active baton into Janin's side without warning. Janin cries out and collapses, convulsing from the voltage. "I said back to work!" Cronus shouts, spittle flying. "Or you'll join them on the slab!" The cruelty shocks me, even though it shouldn't. Cronus glowers at the others who were nearest. Cowed and terrified, people begin to shuffle back. 2 enforcers, Hive security guards in black flak vests, appear at the doorway finally, autoguns in hand, looking bewildered at the corpse and blood. I help Lothar down from the conveyor, my heart pounding. He looks as outraged as I feel. This isn't right. None of this is right. Cronus directs the enforcers, "Get this mess cleaned up and find how that thing got in here." He kicks the dead cannibal for emphasis. One of the enforcers, an older man with an augmetic jaw, nods nervously. "Yes, sir. Should we shut the lines?" "Absolutely not," Cronus snaps. "We have quotas to make. Drag the bodies out of here and let the cogitators recalibrate to account for the loss. The rest of you, what are you looking at? He scans us, daring anyone to meet his gaze. I feel a hot anger surging in me. That could have been any of us killed, and he treats it like a minor spill on the floor. My hands clench into fists. Lothar notices and quickly shakes his head at me, a silent plea not to do something stupid. I grit my teeth and turn away, forcing myself to swallow the rage. Here and now, in front of armed enforcers and cronies, is not the time. As we step back to our station, Cronus shouts an order for the conveyors to be reactivated. The lines shudder to life again. Two workers gingerly pick up the woman's limp body from the belt as it starts moving and carry her off. Another pair drag the cannibal's corpse. The injured, slashed man is helped out by a friend. In minutes, the plant seems to return to its grotesque version of normalcy, as if the blood on the floor is just another oil spill. But it's not normal. Adrenaline still courses through me. The others are shaken. I can see it in the way they move, stiff, on edge. I catch murmurs. Never seen one come up here. Security's slipping. Emperor, protect us. What's next? Mutants? Mutants. That's a thought. If one scabby found a way in, maybe more could. Or, Emperor forbid, some mutant spawn from the sump. I shudder. Lothar is pale, his eyes scanning the shadows, as if expecting another lunatic to leap out. They better seal that breach, he mutters. I nod. I doubt they will unless it's convenient. We work, but our rhythm is off. I'm angry and frightened. On edge. We are nearing shift end, thank the throne. I just want to leave this cursed floor and collapse in my bunk. But fate isn't done with us yet, it seems. Only 10 minutes later, as the noise and routine try to smother the memory of what just happened, I notice Lothar acting strange. He's been quiet, not surprising. But now he's sort of jittery. He keeps glancing towards the far end of the plant, where the chemical vats and compactor presses are, and he's sweating more than usual. You okay? I ask under my breath while tossing a handful of wire into the bin. He starts, like I woke him from deep thought. Fine, just thinking about how that guy got in. I grunt, feeding a bent panel into the shredder intake. Probably a duct or drain tunnel from below. There's always some hole unpatched. Lothar licks his lips behind the mask. If there's a tunnel, could be a way out as well, eh? I shoot him a look. Is that really what he's thinking of right now? But of course it is. For him, maybe this incident just proves how unsafe it is here, fueling his urge to escape. Or maybe he sees opportunity, if a route exists. That tunnel likely just leads to sump horror, I say flatly. Not exactly a golden path. He nods absently. Yeah, but if you go the other way, up instead of down. I shake my head and get back to work. This isn't the time. We'll talk later. However, later never quite comes. As the final siren of our shift begins to blare, a single long tone that normally is music to my ears, an alarm suddenly whoops louder and more urgently over it. Red strobes flash across the facility. Not again. What now? A new voice comes over the Vox net, authoritative and sharp, different from Cronus's. It's a security announcement. Attention, Containment Protocol 17 engaged. All personnel evacuate immediately. This is not a drill. Repeat, this is not a drill. Containment Protocol 17. I have no idea what that is, but the words evacuate immediately hit home. People around the plant freeze for a fraction of a second, looking at each other in confusion. Then I smell it. A sweet, cloying odor mixed with a chemical tang wafting through the air, stronger than all the other scents. It's coming from... I realize with horror from the vents overhead, something's been released into the air circulation. Gas, someone screams. They're gassing us! Chaos erupts. Workers start scrambling off the lines and running for the exits. We may not know exactly what's happening, but everyone knows what to do in a gas leak or contamination. Get out, fast. I grab Lothar's arm. Go, move. We both sprint towards the nearest bulkhead door that leads to the main corridor and lifts. My eyes sting beneath the goggles, and even through the mask I catch a taste of the gas. A sickly sweet taste on my tongue that makes me want to gag. Whatever it is, it's not good. Down the line, a woman rips off her mask, clawing at her throat as she collapses, froth on her lips. Another nearby falls from a gantry, hitting the floor with a dull crack. My co-workers are dropping like flies. Cronus is yelling something on his Vox, perhaps trying to get answers, but in the din, I can't hear him. I catch sight of him on the gantry, but then he staggers, grasping at his throat. His bionic eye flickers. Holy throne, the gas is affecting him already. Must be a potent toxin or something. Maybe his filter implant isn't working. The lights flicker and dim. Whether it's the gas affecting electrical systems or just coincidence, it's now darker, the red emergency beacons spinning shadows. I push forward, shoving aside someone who has stopped in panic. Around us, figures cough and some collapse, choking. My heart is a drum in my ears. The door is bottlenecked with people all trying to cram through. Typical. If we don't get through, we'll die here, trampled or poisoned. Lothar, ahead of me, shoulders past a slowing man. Keep moving, damn you! We squeeze through the doorway into the corridor. Out here, the air is clearer. Vented maybe separately, but the alarm is still blaring red. A couple of Hive security enforcers in gas hoods run past us, heading into the plant, presumably to check or to save equipment. One is shouting into a comm, "Repeat! Unknown contaminant. Possible sabotage." Sabotage. The thought slices through my terror. Was this not a leak or accident, but deliberate? The cannibal incident earlier, now this gas release. Emperor preserve us. Is someone attacking the plant? Suddenly, a powerful boom reverberates through the floor, nearly knocking me off my feet. A hot wind rushes from behind, and I realize something inside just exploded. A fireball belches out of the open door we came from, momentarily lighting the corridor in orange. I hear screams from those unfortunates still inside or nearby. The blast throws several of us to the ground. My ears ring. I cough, the respirator struggling with the influx of smoke. Lothar, I scramble up, looking for him. Debris and dust fill the corridor. Many of the stragglers who hadn't gotten out now lie sprawled, some moving, some worryingly still. I find Lothar against a wall, pushing a piece of metal grate off his legs. He looks dazed but alive. I heave the grate aside and help him up. There's a gash on his forehead, trickling blood, but he seems otherwise intact. We limp further down the corridor, away from the flames licking at the doorway. Automated sprinkler systems sputter on, spraying foul-smelling foam. My mind is racing. If this is sabotage, who? Why? We reach the freight lift lobby, along with maybe a dozen survivors. More alarms are going off everywhere now. The lifts are in emergency lockdown mode. Great. A red light above indicates they're frozen. Stairs, Lothar gasps. We have to take the maintenance stairs. He's right. There's a narrow stairwell used for maintenance that can get us up a couple of levels to a main stair tower. We find the door. It's ajar. People already fled that way. We join the exodus, climbing the metal steps as fast as our battered bodies allow. Every breath through the mask is labor. I feel a burning in my lungs and realize that some of that gas did get to me. Lothar's coughing too, deep and wet. Up and up we climb, passing others. One man is slumped against the railing, wheezing, too far gone to continue. We press on, leaving him. There is no choice. We emerge 2 levels up at 63 into an even broader chaos. Other sections must have had alerts too. The hall here is full of evacuated workers, milling about, coughing, crying out names for missing friends, or pushing further up. Over the babble, a Vox announcement crackles. All workers from Sector 65 through 67 proceed to muster point at Transit Hub H12. Do not attempt to return to HAB levels until cleared. Medical aid will be provided. Transit Hub H12, that's a large cargo station a bit further along. Looks like they want us corralled. Frankly, that sounds fine by me. I just want to get away from whatever that was. Lothar pulls off his respirator enough to spit, then reseals it. "This was no accident," he growls. "Someone did this intentionally." I nod grimly. Sabotage indeed. And given everything, I have a sneaking, dreadful suspicion. I turn to him and see in his face he might be thinking the same. Could it be connected to what he was hinting at earlier? The smuggler, or some group trying to cause chaos? But a gas and explosion is extreme. It feels more like a terror attack or a very drastic attempt at distraction. We join the flow of people heading to the transit hub. It's basically a wide-open platform where cargo trams load, unload. Right now, it's filling with hundreds of disheveled workers from multiple sectors, all looking half-dead and terrified. RB-TESS officers stand on a raised area, herding people into roped sections. The RB-TESS, actual Adeptus RB-TESS, in their black carapace and helmets, not just local enforcers. If they're here, this is serious. They usually don't show unless there's major trouble, like a riot or worse. A sharp voice cuts through the crowd. "Form up. Sector 65C workers here, 65D over there." Arbitrators with shock mauls direct us. Some Mechanicus tech priests scuttle past, headed toward the scene of the explosion, red robes flapping, likely to tend to machine matters or investigate. I slump onto a bench at the edge of our corralled group. My hands won't stop shaking. Lothar sits beside me, staring at nothing. On the far side, I see Cronus. He survived, apparently. He's being loaded onto a stretcher, his face blistered and mask blackened with soot. He's alive, cursing and thrashing weakly as Medicae servitors hold him down. Part of me feels it serves him right, but no one deserves to burn. Still, he won't be barking at us for a while, I suspect. An arbitrator steps up in front of us. She has a grim, scarred face, partially visible behind her helmet visor. "Quiet," she calls out. The babble dies a bit. "Workers of 65C, we are investigating a potential sabotage event. Remain calm. Medicae, Messi, are on the way for those who need it. You will each be questioned in due course. Anyone with information about unusual activity, speak up now and you will be treated fairly." Fairly. Right. Everyone glances at each other, but no one speaks. Mostly because we don't know anything, and because speaking up in a situation like this usually doesn't end well. I exchange a look with Lothar. He suddenly looks anxious, truly fearful, more so than before. Sweat beads on his brow despite the chill air in this large space, and then it clicks in my head. His odd behavior before, his talk about leaving, the fact that someone sabotaged the plant. Emperor, could he be involved? Did he plan something as cover to escape, or no? Sabotage like that, releasing gas, that's not a mild thing. That could have killed us all, and did kill who knows how many. Would he be part of that? I can't believe it. Not Lothar, my friend. But he's fidgeting, avoiding eye contact. And earlier he was eyeing the chemvats area, wasn't he? That's likely where the gas came from if it was a chemical release. My mouth goes dry. I might be sitting next to a saboteur, or at least someone who knew it was coming. If that's true, it explains the sudden presence of RB-TESS too. They might suspect an organized cell of rebels or cultists. Another official arrives, a man in an administratum clerk robe, flanked by two more arbites. They start doing a head count and calling names from a data slate, presumably to see who's accounted for and who might be missing, dead or fled. One of the arbites is carrying a device, a handheld auspex scanner of some sort. He activates it, and it emits a clicking noise as he pans it over us. When aimed vaguely our way, the clicking intensifies. He steps closer. The arbitrator woman asks sharply, "Who has been in contact with chemicals? Any sustained exposure?" The scanner is picking something up. I realize I still have traces of that sweet smell on me, but so does everyone. Yet the scanner is honing specifically. It points right at Lothar. "You," barks the RB test trooper, "stand up." Lothar slowly rises, raising his hands. I inhaled some gas like everyone. "I'm fine, just a bit dizzy." The trooper moves forward and without warning grabs Lothar's arm, twisting it behind his back. "You are contaminated. You will come with us." "Contaminated?" I jump up too, instincts shouting to defend my friend. "Hey, he's not—" Immediately, the female arbitrator is in front of me, one hand on her shock maul. "Sit down." She doesn't raise the maul yet, but her eyes are ice. Not another move. I freeze, heart pounding. Lothar glances back at me, eyes wide and pained. "Don't," he says hoarsely. "Is it don't interfere or don't worry? I'm not sure." They start hauling him off. He doesn't resist, but he manages to speak out, raising his voice to the crowd. "They're lying. They knew this would happen. We're all just—" His shout is cut short by a brutal blow of a maul to his stomach. He doubles over, wheezing. I find myself taking a step, and instantly the arbitrator in front of me swings her maul up to under my chin. I feel the crackle of its power field buzzing a hair's breadth from my throat. I freeze again. "Not another move," she says quietly, almost gently, but her grip on the maul is rock steady. "Unless you want to join him." I bite my tongue. There's nothing I can do. Two arbites drag Lothar further away. I can still hear his voice, ragged, as they take him beyond a wall of black-armored figures. "You fools! We're all as good as dead if—" And then a door slams or a stun blast silences him. My knees feel weak and I slowly sink back to the bench, the arbitrator finally lowering her weapon once I'm compliant. My mind is reeling. What did he mean? They knew this would happen. Who's they? Did Lothar know it was coming? If he did, why didn't he warn me or anyone? Perhaps because he was part of it? Or he only got partial info from someone? Emperor, either scenario is awful. I don't have long to mull it over. The administratum clerk continues with his roster. He calls Lothar's name among others. "Lothar Kimene." "Taken," the arbitrator woman responds briskly. The scribe makes a note, face impassive. They finish the count. We lost many, it seems, but the numbers don't mean much to me right now. I'm in shock. After what feels like hours, they start letting most people go, escorted in groups back to our HAB levels, with orders to remain available for further questioning. A few are kept aside, likely ones who were closest to events or flagged by scans like Lothar. They haven't called me to stay, so I guess I'm free to leave with the main group. I almost don't want to. It feels wrong to walk away while Lothar. But what can I do? If I protest or linger, I'll draw suspicion on myself too. So I shuffle with the rest into a lift assigned to us. Everyone is silent or quietly sobbing for lost friends. The lift ascends, and each of us is still processing that our shift, which began so routinely, ended in blood and fire. My body moves on autopilot back to my HAB block. Marika and others from different shifts are crowding around, demanding to know what happened. Words spill out from a dozen mouths in an incoherent mess. Attack, gas, many dead. Arbites took some. One older man seizes my arm as I try to slip through. His eyes are red from crying or smoke. I recognize him. Geralt, Kata's father. Kata, the woman killed by that cannibal. They took that friend of yours, he rasps, voice trembling with grief and fury. Lothar, everyone's saying he was one of them, one of the saboteurs. I open my mouth, but no sound comes. Shocked murmurs ripple through the small crowd. Geralt's face contorts. My little girl is dead, he spits, tears running down his soot-streaked cheeks. Dead because of people like him. Did you know, boy? Did you know what your friend was? He shakes my arm as if to rattle an answer out of me. Others look on, eyes full of accusation and fear. I didn't, I manage to stammer. My tongue feels leaden. What can I say? That I was blind to it? That I had no idea what he was mixed up in? It's the truth, but in this moment, my truth feels like a flimsy shield. Geralt raises a hand as if to strike me, anger getting the better of him. I almost wish he would. But Marika suddenly steps forward, wedging her one arm between us. Leave the lad be, she says firmly, glaring at Geralt. You think he wanted any of this? You think any of us did? He's just as broken up. Geralt wavers, the fight draining out of him as quickly as it flared. His hand falls limp. With a ragged sob, he turns and stumbles away, covering his face. The others avert their eyes, shame and sorrow replacing accusations. Marika gently tugs me free of the circle. Come on now, she murmurs. Nothing to be done tonight. Let him rest. Back in the dim quiet of our cubicle, Marika eases me down onto my cot. I sit on the edge, still shaking. She settles beside me, her one hand on my shoulder. Don't carry blame that's not yours, she says softly after a moment. I stare at the floor. People are dead, and Lothar, Emperor, I should have known something was wrong. Marika squeezes my shoulder. We can't see into others' souls. Emperor knows. If I noticed every time someone lost hope down here, I'd never sleep for worry. She sighs, a weary sound. Lothar made his choices. You made yours, and you're still here. That's what matters now. You hear me? I nod, not trusting myself to speak. Her words are a small balm on an open wound, but a balm nonetheless. She leaves me be after a while. Outside, I hear people talking about extra security patrols, about how work in our sector will be halted for a few days at least. Some worry about lost wages or rations because of that. Others worry more attacks might come. I collapse onto my bunk, drained in every way. But sleep doesn't come easily. Every time I shut my eyes, I see Lothar's face as they dragged him off. Fear and apology mingled in his gaze. I keep replaying our conversations, the way he'd talked about the sky, leaving this place, how desperate he had become. How did I miss it? What kind of friend was I that he couldn't confide in me? A better friend might have noticed the signs, might have stopped him from going down that path. Now it's too late. The guilt sits like a weight on my chest. Eventually, exhaustion overtakes guilt, and I drift into a shallow, troubled sleep, haunted by the day's horrors. In my dreams, I'm back in the plant, alone on the vast factory floor. The conveyor belts run with no end in sight, carrying heaps of human bones and scrap metal fused together. I try to pull a lever to stop it, but my arms feel like lead. A figure appears on the belt. It's Lothar, his body broken and eyes milky white, reaching out to me. He opens his mouth to speak, but only a choking gurgle comes out, and blood spills from his lips. Behind him comes Rigo and Salim, then Kata, all the people we've lost, their voices a deafening chorus of accusation that echoes in the metallic clangor. I stumble back, and suddenly Cronus looms behind me, his bionic eye blazing red. Waste processing protocol, He snarls, seizing me by the neck. He shoves me toward the open maw of a grinder, the teeth spinning, screaming, hungry. I dig in my heels, but invisible hands, dozens of them, push me from behind. I'm about to fall into the shredding jaws when a blinding light erupts above. I jolt awake with a gasp, heart hammering, sweat drenching me despite the chill. For a moment I'm not sure what's real. The image is so vivid I can almost feel the phantom hands. In the darkness of the HAB unit, I gulp air and try to steady myself. Just a nightmare. But one day I fear it could be more than that. My racing thoughts are interrupted by the sound of boots in the corridor. A heavy knock at my door. I sit up, heart thudding anew. Marika, from her bunk, gives me a wary look, finger to lips. She whispers, "Arbites." The knock comes again, authoritative. "Open up by order of the Adeptus, Arbites." I quickly stand and unlatch the door. Two arbitrators step in, one shining a lumen in my face briefly, the other holding a data slate. I squint, raising a hand. "You are Kellen Forge?" the one with the slate asks. I realize I've never introduced myself until now. Names mean little down here unless someone is shouting them. But yes, that's me. "Yes," I reply, mouth dry. "You work in Reclamation 65C and were present during the incident." "Yes." They exchange glances. "We have additional questions. Come with us." I swallow. Marika starts to protest from behind, but a sharp glare from the lumen-toting arbitrator silences her. I nod and follow them out. They march me down several passages until we reach what looks like an improvised command post. Likely a disused storeroom, now with RB-test cogitators set up, officers conferring over picto feeds. They take me into a smaller side room. It's bare except a table and two chairs, an interrogation cell, basically. My heart is jackhammering again. I try to stay calm. I have nothing to hide, right? But depending on what they think, truth might not matter. They sit me down, cuff my wrists to a ring on the table. Another arbitrator, older, with cybernetic augments on his temples, perhaps a lie detector implant, sits across. His eyes regard me coldly. "State your name and occupation," he begins. I do so. He proceeds to ask me about the day's events in excruciating detail. I recount everything as accurately as I can. The discovery of the body, the cannibal, the gas alarm, explosion. They frequently ask about Lothar. What did he say? What did I observe about him? How did he act? I try to be truthful, but also not damn him unnecessarily. I admit he talked about leaving the Hive, which now, in hindsight, probably sounds damning. The arbitrator's eyebrow twitches at that. He asks if Lothar ever mentioned grievances or anti-imperial sentiment, if he had accomplices. I say, not that I noticed beyond the normal griping we all do about conditions. They push, asking if he ever tried to recruit me to any cause, or if I saw him near the chemvats. I say no. He was with me at our line except for brief moments. The older arbitrator steeples his fingers. Your friend had in his possession a vial of toxic chemical agent, identical to what was released in the incident. We found traces on him and inside a compartment of his tool bag. I feel as if I've been punched. A vial. Then it really looks like Lothar did it, or was part of it. But I never saw a vial or anything. I didn't know, I stammer. If he had that, he never showed me. The arbitrator narrows his eyes, likely detecting my shock. So you claim no knowledge of his involvement? Did he say anything at all during or after, hinting at a motive or group? He just said they knew this would happen, I recall aloud, heart sinking. When the Arbites took him, he shouted that. The interrogator nods slowly, as if confirming something he suspected. Yes, he insists he was not acting alone, that someone else orchestrated it and set him up. Frankly, they all claim something like that. They, I ask before I can stop myself. He allows it. We have 3 suspects in custody, your friend and 2 others from different sections, all found with evidence of malfeasance. It's likely a coordinated act by a group, possibly cultists or rebels agitating against the guilds. We will find out. I shake my head slightly, stunned. Lothar in league with cultists or rebels? It seems unreal. But also, the friend I knew had been at a breaking point. Could he have been roped into something? The arbitrator stands. Your record shows no previous infractions, no notable ideological deviations. You appear to be an ordinary worker who was in the wrong place. He leans forward. So here is what's going to happen, Kellen Forge. You will be released for now. But your shifts will be reassigned away from critical infrastructure until we are satisfied you're clean. You will report to your local precinct weekly for the next quarter for check-ins. And if you remember anything else, no matter how small, regarding Lothar or any other suspicious behavior, you will report it immediately. Understood? I nod rapidly. Yes, sir. He uncuffs me. The Emperor protects the loyal. See that you remain so. With that rather ominous benediction, I'm escorted out and set free. They actually allow me to just walk back to the Hab block, alone. The Hive feels different now, even though nothing physically changed. But I feel watched, vulnerable. It's like every shadow might hide an informant or a saboteur. My neighbors certainly watch me differently. They know Lothar was my friend, and while I've been officially released, suspicion clings. The next days, people avoid talking to me more than polite necessity. I've been marked by association. After a day, they assign me to a different detail while Reclamation 65C is repaired. They have me doing cleanup in an adjacent sector, menial hauling of debris, scrubbing soot from walls. It's temporary make work, but at least I still get my meager rations. The crew there knows I'm a transfer from 65C. They don't ask questions, but I catch them casting sideways glances when they think I'm not looking. One of them, an older man missing an ear, mutters to another loud enough for me to hear, "That's one from the bombed section." The other grunts, eyeing me as if I might explode myself. When I try to help scrub a high section of wall beside them, they shuffle away to work elsewhere. I eat my solitary lunch under that cloud of suspicion. I can't blame them. In the Imperium, guilt has a way of staining everyone it touches, and I've been splashed by my friends' actions. For most people, life in the Hives is tough. Conditions are squalid and unsanitary. The very air we breathe is recycled from the spire above and pumped through the rest of the city, growing ever more bitter and poisonous the further down it filters. Even the water is distilled from the discharge of the upper Hive, and food is factory-produced, sometimes algae-based or spun from corpse starch. Pollution and overcrowding are the least of our woes. Gang violence and outright anarchy are part of everyday life, particularly in the lower levels. Most of us know only our own Hive city and never leave it during our lifetime. We live and die in these metal wombs. 2 weeks pass. They haven't found the real masterminds behind the sabotage, if any exist. The arsonists, or whoever orchestrated the attacks, are still at large. Rumors run rampant through the Habs. Some insist it's a genes stealer cult, those Xenos-loving mutants who infiltrate and incite rebellion, claiming they've seen strange 3-armed shadows skittering in the dark, though those tales always circulate when fear is high. Others mutter it's a power play between the great houses or guilders, a secret war of sabotage spilling onto us peons. A few of the deeply devout whisper that it's the Emperor's own judgment for our Hive's sin, though why he'd burn Hab blocks and spare the corrupt highborn is a theological knot no one can untangle. In the meantime, life somehow continues. The The plant is repaired, at least enough to run. The announcement comes that Sector 65 will resume operations on a limited basis, with increased security and Mechanicus oversight. They post notices on the HAB bulletin boards. Everyone is to report back to work on their next scheduled cycle. The day before I'm due back at Reclamation 65C, an official broadcast blares through the Voxnet. By decree of Lord Helmore, martial law is declared in the lower Hive until further notice. All citizens remain in your habitation zones when not at assigned labor. Unauthorized gatherings will be fired upon. Curfew begins at the 18th hour. Compliance is life. The Emperor protects. Loudspeakers blare constant reminders. Obey curfew. Report any suspicious behavior. The Emperor's wrath awaits all heretics. Printed edicts are slapped on corridor walls, promising bounties for informants and grim punishment for collaborators. It feels like we're living in a war zone, a siege with invisible enemies among us. They start doing sweeps. People are dragged out on suspicions, sometimes returned after rough questioning, sometimes not returned at all. Each day brings a new horror. I come across scenes I wish I hadn't. A group of arbitrators publicly flogging a woman in the market square for lack of cooperation when she pleaded ignorance about a neighbor's affiliations. A pair of enforcers hauling away an entire family because a banned pamphlet was found in their quarters. One night, I hear gunshots not far from our hab. Later, I learn a gang of Jews broke curfew and were executed on the spot as an example. The Hive echoes with booted feet and fearful silence. It's as if the air itself carries the metallic tang of dread. I find myself wondering, if the God Emperor truly watches over us, why does his justice feel so indiscriminate and cruel? My mind drifts back to my Scholam days, sitting on hard benches as a stern ministorum sister led us in the catechism of protection. The Emperor protects those who are pure, we chanted. I believed it then, said it with a child's conviction. But now, the purity of our faith doesn't stop the bullets or the gas or the hunger. Down here, it feels like we're being punished by both the heretics and the authorities sworn to shield us. The Emperor's light does not reach us. Perhaps we're not pure enough to deserve it. That thought twists my gut with equal parts anger and guilt. If you ask me, it's the common folk who suffer no matter what. The cultists, or rebels, if that's indeed who's doing this, hide in shadows and strike from behind, and the Emperor's enforcers crack down on us all in response. We're caught in the vice. One evening, I'm returning from my temporary cleanup shift, exhausted but anxious to get home before curfew. Halfway there, a figure steps out of a side alcove suddenly. I jump, thinking it's a cutpurse or an Arby-Tess ambush. But then I recognize him. It's Bren, perched on a little wheeled cart he sometimes uses. He looks around furtively and beckons me. "Kellen? Been looking for you." I frown, wary. "Bren, what is it?" He wheels himself closer, lowering his raspy voice. "You were friends with that Lothar, yeah?" The mention of Lothar sets off alarm bells. "Why?" He glances around with his one good eye. "Got a message." "From him." My heart practically stops. "From him? How? Where is he? I trail off. I thought they'd execute Lothar or lobotomize him into a servitor by now. Bren shakes his head. "They were moving him. I got contacts in the sump market. He bribed a guy to slip a note out. Note ended up with me to find you." My hands tremble as Bren pulls a tiny, grimy scroll of paper from a hidden pocket and presses it into my palm. I unroll it carefully, heart pounding. It's smudged and water-stained, but I recognize Lothar's scratchy handwriting. "Kay, if you get this, I'm likely gone. They plan to servitor us. Listen, it wasn't just me. The others in on it were part of a cult. Emperor, forgive me, I didn't know they'd kill so many. Thought it was just a disruption. The cult, they worship something. Talk about a coming deliverance for the Hive. They have more plans. Our cell was just one. They infiltrated the guild and even some enforcers. Trust no one as above. If you can get out, do it. I left something in the usual spot we smoked behind the coolant tanks. It's yours now. Use it to save yourself or others. Throne be with you, brother. L. I read it twice, my eyes widening further with each pass. Cult infiltration, more plans, something behind the coolant tanks. They plan to servitor us. Emperor's tears. Lothar might already be lobotomized, his brain scooped out and wired into some mindless machine. The thought makes me sick. Did he say anything else? I whisper, voice tight. Bren shrugs. Only that he was sorry, and that ye deserved better than this life. Honestly, lad, ye always were kind. If you're thinking to run, I say do it. Hive's going to hell nowadays. I curl the note in my fist. Lothar's telling me to run, to get out, and that he left me something, the stash he hinted at, perhaps, behind the coolant tanks where we used to sneak smokes. He also implies the cult is far from done, that they have people in the guild and enforcers. Emperor, if that's true, this hive could tear itself apart, or the Inquisition will come and purge everyone, innocent or not. I mutter a thank you to Bren and slip him a small throne gelt coin, one of the few I had squirreled away. His eyes widen at the value and he nods gratefully. Just remember old Bren when ye're lord of some paradise, eh? He jokes with a gap-toothed grin. I manage a thin smile. Will do. Then I hurry off, my mind racing. If Lothar believed the cult had infiltrated that deeply, who can I trust with this information? The local Arbites? They might be compromised or just round up and execute more random workers if I told them. Maybe the Inquisition, but I wouldn't know how to reach them without proof or without risking being labeled a heretic myself. And he said, if you can get out, do it. Coming from Lothar, who dreamed of the sky, that's practically his dying wish for me. I decide then and there, I'm leaving this hive. The thought terrifies and exhilarates me in equal measure. It's betrayal of everything I've known, but if I stay, I'll either end up recycled or caught in the crossfire of whatever war is brewing. First, I need to see what he left behind for me. The next day, I report back to Reclamation 65C for the first time since the incident. The place is quieter than before, a bit emptier. New security picture recorders have been installed, and a stern-faced guild representative hovers on the overseer gantry along with a rust-red ingenseer from the Adeptus Mechanicus, a rail-thin cyborg bristling with mechadendrite arms, chanting binaric prayers as systems come online. Cronus is absent, recovering or dead, I don't know. I find myself paired with a new partner, some wiry youth barely out of the scholam, eyes wide at everything. The kid introduces himself in a timid stammer. Taron, from a different hive, transferred here to fill shortages. His hands shake as he adjusts his goggles. So, this is where it happened? That explosion? He whispers while we wait for the all clear to start our line. I can see sweat beading on his forehead despite the chill in the air. Yeah, I answer quietly. Right here. I decide not to sugarcoat it. It was bad, but lightning doesn't strike the same spot twice, huh? It's a flimsy comfort, but what else can I say? Taron swallows hard. I'll work hard, sir. I won't cause any trouble. Sir? I almost laugh. No one's ever called me that. I must seem like an old man to him, though I'm maybe 10 years his senior. Just do your best and watch your step. We're all just trying to get by." He nods, clutching his toolkit as if it might save him. In his eyes, I see a reflection of my younger self. Back when I still thought if I followed every rule and prayed extra hard, I'd be spared the worst. I don't have the heart to tell him it doesn't work like that. Instead, I pat his shoulder and muster a reassuring tone. "Stick with me, Taron. We'll get through the shift, one piece at a time." The workday passes without incident for once. No cannibals, no explosions, just the dull, grinding drudgery that's our normal. At least the Mechanicus's additional attention means the conveyor runs smoother than it ever has. The engine's ear must have communed with its spirit properly. We all keep our heads down. By the end of the shift, I'm bone-tired but resolute. I have a mission tonight. When the shift bell rings and we're released, I linger around the edges of the departing crew. Under the pretense of finishing some cleaning near the old maintenance area, I slip away from the others. Security is tighter now, but I know these back passages better than any arbitrator. At a break in the patrol patterns, I duck into the shadowed aisle behind the row of gigantic, disused coolant tanks at the far end of the sector. These tanks were replaced by newer ones years ago, and now sit empty and silent, half-forgotten hulks where Lothar and I used to sneak an illicit LO stick on particularly long shifts. My heart thumps as I navigate the narrow space. The corridor beyond the main floor is dim and mostly deserted at this hour. Every clank of my footsteps on metal grating sounds unnaturally loud to my ears. I pause at each corner, listening for approaching boots or the whir of a servo skull patrol. My mouth is dry. Getting caught wandering in off-limits areas could mean a lashing, or worse, a branding as a thief. But I press on. Soon, the familiar hulking shapes of the coolant tanks loom ahead in the gloom, towering silent and cold. A slow drip of condensation echoes somewhere, and tiny sump rats skitter away as I round the tanks. The air smells of rust and stale water here, a blind spot in the Hive's endless circulation. The faint glow of an overhead amber lumen casts long shadows. Behind the third tank, our spot, I crouch and feel along the base of the wall plating. My fingers brush something that isn't metal, soft like cloth. With a quick glance over my shoulder, no one there, I tug it free. It's a small pouch wrapped in oiled cloth, wedged into a crevice. I hastily stuff it inside my coveralls and move out of there before any wandering eyes catch me. Once I'm safely away, stashed in a privy stall in a deserted washroom, I open the pouch. Inside are a handful of coins and ration chits, hard currency, enough to matter. A last pistol charge pack, full but no pistol, and a tiny data slate memory chip. I turn the chip over in my fingers. Could be evidence Lothar gathered. Given what his note said, probably information on that cult. My heart aches thinking of him sneaking around, collecting these dangerous secrets while I was oblivious. He likely planned to use this as proof or leverage. The charge pack puzzles me. Perhaps he intended to acquire a weapon, or had one stashed elsewhere. Or it's just a general useful item. The money, though, is clear. It's likely for passage to pay the smuggler he mentioned. Emperor bless him. He saved up what he could and left it for me. I hide the items in my boot lining and inner pockets and slip back into the main corridors before anyone notices my absence. That night, I can hardly sleep. I keep rereading Lothar's note by candlelight. I copied it onto a scrap and burned the original to be safe. Cult infiltration. Deliverance for the Hive. More plans. It sounds like some heretical revolt brewing. Part of me wants to turn that info over to someone who could stop it. An inquisitor, the Arbites, hell, even the local PDF. But I don't have nearly enough to go on, and I trust none of those in power down here. If the cult has people in the Enforcers and Guild, any move I make openly could just get me disappeared quietly. And honestly, A larger part of me just wants to get as far away from this hive as possible. Let someone else untangle this mess. So I make my decision. I'm leaving. Sneaking out during curfew is tricky, but areas near the silo are lightly patrolled, especially if one knows the maintenance byways. I spend the next day quietly gathering what little I'll carry, wrapping the coins and chits securely, tucking the data chip and last pack into my boot lining, and saying some silent goodbyes in my heart. To Marika, to the memory of my mother and father, to Lothar, wherever he is now. When night falls and the curfew sirens wail, I slip out of the hab block through a maintenance hatch in the floor that Bren showed me long ago. It leads into a half-flooded conduit tunnel. I wade through knee-deep chemical runoff, guided only by memory and the faint bioluminescent glow of algae, putting as much distance as I can between myself and the patrol routes. At one point, I hear the clank of an RB Tess patrol on the street above and freeze, half submerged in stinking liquid until the echoes pass. Eventually, I reach an old cargo drainage pipe that exits near Silo 19, outside the hive wall. I pry open a rusty grate and haul myself out into the open air. The ash wastes. Emperor, I've never been out here at night. The sky is moonless and pitch black, but I can see the distant outline of our hive city behind me, a silhouette of black against slightly less black, with a few faint pinpricks of light in the upper spire. The air tastes of alkali and dust, but it's air that hasn't been breathed by thousands before me. For a second, despite the danger, I just stand there, ankle-deep in powdery ash, and breathe. Keeping low, I make my way toward the rendezvous, skirting pools of toxic sludge and the husks of long-abandoned machines, half buried in the dust. In the near distance, I spot the floodlights of Silo 19 and the shadow of a shuttlecraft perched beside it. My heart leaps. Almost there. Red Kelso is waiting by a stack of crates, a red bandana around his neck. He's flanked by two tough-looking haulers. He gives me a curt nod when I approach. We exchange no pleasantries, just the necessary. He jerks his thumb at a half-open cargo container. Get in, you'll have air and water. Should be at the void station by morning. I hand him the pouch of coins and chits Lothar left. He counts quickly, biting one coin. Satisfied, he gestures, and one of his men opens the container door a bit wider. The man's augmetic arm whirs softly, a heavy lifter model. Inside, it's dark and smells of pigel rot. The floor is piled with burlap sacks of what feels like dried nutrients or moss. Pick a spot and stay still, Kelso instructs. Once we're loaded, don't make a sound. You'll get out when it's safe. Got it? Got it! Before I climb in, I grip his forearm briefly. Thank you. Whether he's doing it for coin or not, he's risking a lot. He just grunts. Thank me by not getting caught and squealing. Emperor guide you, friend. With that, I slip into the container and wedge myself into a hollow between sacks. His man pulls the heavy door closed, enveloping me in darkness. They seal the container. Darkness. The metal walls press in on me. My heart thumps so loudly in my ears, I worry it might echo beyond my hiding place. With no light except a faint green glow from some cracked chemical stick in the corner, I lose all sense of direction. The container sways as it's lifted, each clang and jolt making me brace instinctively. I picture the cargo shuttle beyond, a craft I've never seen but am now a secret passenger on. My fate is literally out of my hands. In the stuffy darkness, my mind wanders. I think of Marika, of Bren, of the hundreds of souls I left behind in that burning, bleeding hive. Guilt mixes with relief. I'm abandoning them to their fates, but what could I do if I stayed? Join them in death or slavery? At least this way, one of us might find something better. Time loses meaning as I lie curled among the sacks. Minutes, hours, I'm not sure. The faint vibration of engines through the crate tells me when we lift off. There's a jolt that makes my stomach lurch, and suddenly the weight on my body lessens. We must be leaving the planet's gravity. I'm too anxious to sleep. Instead, I whisper fragments of litanies to myself to stay calm. The Emperor is with me, I hope. Or if not him, perhaps just my own stubborn will to live. After a long while, the container thuds down and everything goes quiet, except the distant hum of a pressurized environment. We must be docked somewhere. I wait, listening. Muffled voices, the scrape of machinery moving cargo. The air tastes different, sterile, processed. Eventually, I decide it's safe. My joints crack as I unfold myself from the cramped niche. I push up on the lid. To my relief, Kelso kept it unlatched. It pops open with only a slight creak. I peek out. I'm in a dim hold, stacked with other crates. No one in sight at the moment. Climbing out, I stretch my stiff limbs. Through the open bay door of the hold, I glimpse metal corridors lit by cleaner, brighter lights than any in the hive. The air smells recycled, but without the undertone of filth. This place is kept clean. I slip out of the cargo area and merge with a small group of HAB-uniformed laborers pushing a grav cart. No one gives me a second glance. I'm just a grimy face among many. Just like that, I'm on Atropos Station. I overhear a loudspeaker mention the name. A waypoint in orbit above the Hive world, where shuttles transfer cargo to larger void ships and where some off-world commerce occurs. The station is a commercial trade hub orbiting our planet, and it's more upscale than anything I've ever seen, though still utilitarian. The polished deck plates under my boots are so clean I can almost see my reflection, a far cry from the grime-caked floors of the underhive. The air smells recycled but oddly sterile, with undertones of machine oil and perhaps a hint of citrus from a nearby scrubber vent. Hivers like me shuffle alongside voidsmen in navy uniforms, administratum clerks in crisp white robes, and even a few wealthy-looking travelers in embroidered coats with shining augmetics. I feel terribly out of place, a gutter shade stumbling into a world of light. But in the anonymous bustle of a busy port, no one gives a second glance at a lone, soot-stained workman. They're too busy with their own destinations. The vast concourse opens before me, with high steel arches and lumens far brighter than the hives. I can see vast observation windows at the far end, showing the blackness of space dotted by stars. Stars. I stop for a moment, my breath catching. I'd only ever seen them as tiny points through the haze above our spire, and here they are, scattered like diamonds on velvet. It's beautiful. But I can't dawdle. I join the throng moving along. All around there are picked screens listing departures, arrivals, and notices. Snippets of conversation in a dozen accents, and languages I don't even know, wash over me. For now, survival. Before I fully commit to a new path, I remember the data chip Lothar entrusted to me. While the colonial officials process other passengers in the distance, I slip over to a public cogitator terminal in a quiet corner of the embarkation hall. My hands are sweaty as I slot the tiny memchip into the reader, heart thudding. It's encrypted, but not beyond basic Hive cogitator security. After a moment, a file opens, simple text labeled Evidence. I scroll through it quickly, eyes widening. It's a log of names, dates, observations. Lothar, or someone he knew, compiled details on the cult's activities, clandestine gatherings in maintenance tunnels, lists of sympathizers, including a few low-ranking administratum clerks, and even a local enforcer. Notes about coordinating attacks and something called the Cleansing Fire, perhaps their code name for the sabotage campaign. One entry describes a secret meeting 2 levels below our plant, where a robed speaker promised the downtrodden that a great cleansing fire would liberate them from the tyranny of the guilds and nobility. Another references plans to orchestrate incidents using ash-mad scavies, like that cannibal we encountered, to sow chaos and fear in the mid-hive. It dawns on me that the cannibal's presence might not have been pure chance. He could have been deliberately led into the plant as part of all this. Emperor. Lothar was trying to expose them. This is proof of how deep the rot went. A cult promising deliverance, recruiting among desperate workers and under-hive scum, worming into positions of influence. For a second, I considered trying to hand this over to someone, an Arbites precinct here on the station, or transmitting it down to the planetary authorities. But what would that do? Best case, it eventually reaches someone who cares, and they purge a few more wretches in the hive, maybe even catch some cult leaders. Worst case, it gets ignored or, throne forbid, intercepted by the very people it's meant to incriminate. I'm one lone dockhand with no credentials. I'd likely be detained for even claiming to have such information. In the end, I copy the file onto a small encrypted storage bead and tuck it into my boot alongside Lothar's letter. Maybe one day I can put it in the right hands, someone truly able to root out the corruption. For now, survival and escape come first. The boarding announcement for the colonial transport I'm eyeing echoes through the hall, and I don't intend to miss my chance. I step away from the terminal, melting back into the flow of travelers. The recruitment board catches my eye, flashing hollows and posters seeking laborers, soldiers, and pilgrims. This is the moment Lothar dreamed of, a chance to choose something different. I linger at the recruitment board, reading each notice carefully. One poster offers positions aboard an Imperial Navy void ship, promising adventure in the stars and a modest wage with full citizenship granted after 5 years of service. It tempts me for a moment. I do know my way around machinery, but 5 years locked in a warship's bowels under the lash of some bosun? Not so different from life in the hive, except with the added risk of being blown out in airlock by Xenos. I move on. The next notice seeks colonial laborers for a frontier world. It even displays a rotating hollow image of green fields and a sunlit sky. The administratum is looking for workers to terraform and build on a newly reclaimed agri-world. The indenture period is 7 standard years, after which a plot of land and housing will be granted to those who survive. Survive? They don't say it outright, but everyone knows frontier work is perilous. Still, the idea of living under open sky after a few years of toil, it calls to me. Another flyer invites the devout to join a sanctioned pilgrimage to Holy Terra itself. Passage fees are astronomical, clearly meant for nobles or high clergy, not the likes of me. I barely give it a second glance. There's also a corporate posting from Necromunda Spire Corp, seeking skilled underhive divers for off-world hive construction, basically glorified hazard duty in another megacity. They tout high pay, but reading between the lines, it sounds like another death trap. I've had my fill of collapsing tunnels and poisonous air. No thanks. Finally, an enlistment banner for the Imperial Guard catches my eye. A stern commissar hologram promising glory in service to the Emperor on distant battlefields. A few hivers are lined up there, hollow-eyed but hoping a lasgun and a uniform might grant them respect, or at least a purpose. Joining the Guard would get me off-world for sure. But to face horrors I've only heard whispers of. My blood runs cold at the thought. I haven't survived the hell of the hive just to die as cannon fodder on some far-flung front. Not if I have a choice. I step back from the board and exhale slowly. Each choice is a gamble, but my eyes keep wandering to that hollow of the agri-world's sunrise. After a lifetime in shadow, the chance to live under a blue sky is worth almost any risk. Decision made, I head to the berth where the colonial charter ship is docked, joining a small crowd of other hopefuls. We line up to register for passage under the watch of a few administratum officials with data slates. As I stand among the throng of emigrants, I realize I've been clutching my bag strap so tightly my knuckles are white. This is it. While we wait in the slow queue, I can't help but notice the varied expressions around me. The man beside me clutches a small Aquila pendant and murmurs a prayer. Across the aisle, a mother holds her young daughter tight, humming a lullaby despite the tears in her own eyes. There's fear here, yes, but also a fragile optimism. We are people with nothing left to lose, daring to hope for something better. Within the hour, I'm processed and issued a boarding chit. A loading servitor stamps my arm with an auspex readable mark, identifying me as Colonial Indenture, number 1187. They herd us onto the transport shuttle that will take us to the colony ship in high orbit. We shuffle forward when our group's number is called, handing over identity tags and signing our names on the colony registry. I shoulder my small sack of belongings, not much more than a change of clothes and a few keepsakes, and step through the bulkhead door onto the shuttle. Before long, I'm strapped in among dozens of other hivers-turned-hopeful colonists. The transport's engines rumble to life beneath us. I'm sandwiched between a wiry older woman and a young man barely in his teens. Safety harnesses buckle across our chests. A red light rotates on the ceiling, and a voice over the intercom begins a countdown for launch. My heart is pounding, but not entirely with fear. There's something else there, too, fluttering in my chest. Could it be excitement? Hope? As the shuttle disengages from the station docking clamps, I catch a glimpse through a small round viewport. The planet slowly comes into view below, a vast ash-gray orb swirled with toxic yellow clouds. Somewhere on that globe of poisoned dust is the Hive city that was my prison and my home. It's a strange feeling, knowing I might never see it again. Goodbye, I whisper under my breath, to the world, to the Hive, to the ghosts of everyone I left behind. A surge of both sorrow and relief wells up in me. I made it out. Emperor, help me, I actually did. I lean back as the shuttle's thrusters fire, pressing us into our seats. Through the window, I watch the planet shrink. The Hive cities are visible as faint dark blotches on the surface, obscured by haze. The Hive I lived in is just a tiny patch of darkness among many. In my mind, I see Lothar standing beside me, gazing out at the stars he longed for. I silently thank him. His final gift to me was this chance, and I'll carry that with me into whatever comes next. I promise myself I won't waste it. The shuttle docks with the colony ship, a vast lumbering void freighter fitted with makeshift passenger decks for Usiuas migrants. Soon we're unstrapped and guided into the larger vessel. I'm assigned a bunk in a crowded dormitory deep in the ship's belly, among hundreds of others like me. But I hardly mind the close quarters or the smell. I hardly mind anything at all right now, because for the first time in my life, I'm leaving. We get a short orientation, a meal of nutrient paste, some things don't change, and then most settle in for the long voyage. I find my way to a small viewing port in a corridor alcove during a rest period. Outside, the void of space stretches infinite and silent, pinpricked by distant suns. As the colony ship's engines hum steadily, carrying us toward that distant agri-world and a new life, I allow myself to finally relax just a little. So long I lived in darkness, literal and figurative. But the pinprick lights of those stars remind me of something Lothar used to say from an old prayer, "From the shadows unto the light." Leaning against the bulkhead, I murmur those words barely audible, from the shadows unto the light. For once, I allow myself to believe those words might actually come true. This time, they don't feel like empty words. I don't know what awaits us on that frontier world, whether it's truly a paradise or just another kind of struggle under a different sun. I don't know if I'll live to see those green fields that were in the Hollow, but as I stand here, gazing at the star-speckled void, I feel something I haven't felt in a long, long time, something warm stirring in my chest. Hope,